And first, we are going to, and then we're going to grill. Actually, we're going to grill barbecue expert Stephen Reichlin. He is here. He tells you everything you'd ever want to know or think about asking about the art of grilling. So first, we're going to skewer a few selections with Delano and then skewer some edibles with the barbecue chef. Cullen on cable. So I don't know about you, but I did. Yes, I did. I did my civic duty. I went off and just like that. And you managed to vote for a few people who won. That's rather unusual for me. The election yesterday, what does it all mean? I don't know if he knows, but he's going to make a good attempt to appear to know what it all means. John Delano, our political analyst. Oh, what does it all mean? It means this one got more votes than that one got? And I don't know. Are there any great truths that are evident?
It's really just the beginning of a very long road ahead. You know, one election ends and the next one begins. We're at really a stage where we are picking candidates now for the new government that Allegheny County voters approved a year ago. And this is the first step in a process that will ultimately lead to a brand new form of government with a county executive and a 15-member county council. And you know, Lynn, what is maybe peculiar or distressing is that even fewer people voted yesterday than the experts over at the county elections department.
What was the turnout?
We think the final turnout is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 35%. Below the 45% that Mark Wolosik, the elections director, predicted. And, you know, almost as bad as the turnout a year ago when the voters approved home rule for Allegheny County. Only 30% of the voters showed up. 2/3 of the voters stayed home and didn't bother to adopt this new form of government. So maybe it's not surprising that far more than half stayed home in this first round of picking candidates to represent us in the year 2000.
Well, maybe there's just, you know, a certain small percentage of people that are even interested in having a say in what goes on around them, well, I guess.
Yeah, but I think ultimately, you know, elections, the dynamic of an election depends on the candidates. And this was generally a boring election. We found that candidates were hitting at each other, particularly on the Democratic side, lots of negative commercials back and forth, also on the Republican side, but particularly Democratic. But none of it seemed to relate to our own lives. We looked at these candidates and they were accusing each other of selling glands or of double dipping on the government payroll.
Right.
And what does that have to do with our families, with educating our children, with even with taxes and property assessments? There was no real focus on issues that mean things to people. And so it was very easy to just, you know, push them all away and say, I'm not going to be part of this.
Okay, so now we've got these, the two that we had been told would be left standing, Wecht and Roddy. One of these men is going to be the first county executive of Allegheny County. What differentiates these two, one from the other? I mean, I look at them. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat, both bright men, both capable men. I got a feeling there's not really much difference between the two of them in terms of what they would do.
Well, I think both of them would argue there's a lot that distinguishes them, and we're going to hear a lot more about that in the months to come. But, you know, your reaction is the natural instinct. I have heard both these gentlemen speak on the campaign trail numerous times and moderated several debates among them. And they do, Dr. Wecht and Jim Roddy do sound very much alike. They are articulate, they're intelligent, they really have a way with words, and they're able to stand up and talk without notes, and some of them can go on a little longer than others, but they can speak, and they speak well. But the truth is that this election this fall is going to be a momentous one, particularly for the Republican Party. Governor Ridge and the Republican leadership statewide has targeted Allegheny County as an opportunity for them to really elect a real Republican and a Republican-controlled government. And Jim Roddy is a perfect standard bearer for the party because he's somebody who has a history of working with Democrats and maybe can appeal to Democratic votes. The only way a Republican like Jim Roddy can win in this county is to not only unite his own party,
right,
and we can talk about that after Larry Dunn's not so gracious comments last night, but Jim Roddy's going to have to unite his own party, but then he's going to have to go at least 1/3 of the Democrats. He's going to have to take a number of Democrats on his side in order to win in a county that is 2-to-1 Democratic.
Well, I know anecdotal stuff doesn't really pass muster, but I have heard a lot of Democrats say that they will vote for Roddy.
Yeah, and this is the challenge for Cyril Wecht. Cyril Wecht, who has been really trashed in the media through campaign commercials by his opponent Mike DeWitte, and certainly through a legacy of serving in government for the last several decades. There's a history there, and he is going to have to convince people that there are things more important to them and their future and this county's future than some of the things that were dredged up in the campaign. I have a pretty good instinct that what Cyril Wecht is going to focus on is on Democrats. The difference between a county government run by Democrats, by progressive Democrats, he identifies himself in that tradition of the party, versus the Duquesne Club businessman crowd of Jim Roddy. Now he'll be, in many ways, it's kind of the
That's
argument
what Larry
Dunn.
Yeah, that sounds like.
But it'll be much
Dunn.
more sophisticated than Larry Dunn, because Cyril Wecht, after all, pals around with some of these folks, and I think he's not going to he's not going to talk about the downtown corporate elite, but he's going to talk about the Republican Party and the Republicans taking control of Allegheny County and what that means for working families. And Dr. Wecht has a real challenge here because he's going to have to convince a number of, let's say, independent Democrats who supported Mike DeWitte and who as of today are inclined to vote for Jim Roddy. He's going to have to bring them back into the fold and say, hey, the Democratic principles are more important than electing a personality or not electing a personality.
The Republicans are coming! The Republicans are coming! John Delano continuing to, well, I don't know, help us understand what we did yesterday, at least what some of us did, very few of us, in fact. We'll be back in just a moment. If you have a call, or question, I guess, make a call. It was a late night. 333-PCNC.
Cullen on Cable is sponsored in part by McCardle Surgical. Access your world.
You're looking at the election results on the Republican side for chief executive, 2-to-1. Jim Roddy over Larry Dunn. We're talking to John Delano, political analyst. I mean, the polls showed that this is not an unexpected result. You use the adjective ungracious for Larry Dunn's remarks.
I think so. I think what I heard of those remarks, I really think that when you lose an election, you really want to bend over backwards, not to sound like a sore loser, sour grapes. And, you know, apparently Commissioner Dunn did not call Jim Roddy, did not offer congratulations. That's very traditional in politics. Almost all candidates do it. Mike DeWitte did call Cyril Wecht and congratulate him. Mr. Dunn did not do that. And then in his statement, his concession speech, he essentially said he was the victim of that downtown corporate elite who had funneled all this money to Jim Roddy, in Mr. Dunn's view, in order to defeat Larry Dunn because of his support or his opposition to tax dollars.
Well, there's some truth in that.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's some truth in that.
Oh, sure. But normally at the end of a campaign, when you lose, you just let all that pass and you talk. And I guess the reason it becomes interesting is because even with that an astounding 2-to-1 victory for Jim Roddy, he needs an absolutely united Republican Party in order to win in November. And you've got 1/3 of the Republican Party sticking with Larry Dunn, and unlike Mike DeWitte, who last night said he would vote for and support Cyril Wecht. Larry Dunn did not say that he would support Jim Roddy. Now, maybe that'll happen over the course of a few days, but who knows?
What happens to these two guys, Dunn and DeWitta? They've been out there ever since I've been in town. What happens to them?
I think it's a great question. It's a great question to speculate about. Number one, Mike DeWitta is an attorney, presumably at the end of the year. They both have secure county jobs until January 1st and a paycheck, so they've got a lot of time to job hunt. I think Mike DeWitta, as an attorney, will probably find a position with some law firm somewhere. Larry Dunn has been a government employee most of his life, and so I'm not quite sure where he's going to turn as he looks for future opportunities. I think what is interesting to speculate about, though, is, you know, we have this coalition government between Mike DeWitta and Bob Cranmer. Bob Cranmer is a very close confidant of Jim Roddy. Jim Roddy chaired the Cranmer 2000 political committee. So will this coalition between DeWitta and Cranmer be affected by the fact that Bob Cranmer will certainly want Jim Roddy to win in November over the Democrats? I don't know. I mean, maybe both of them are going to say, well, we're both out of this. We'll continue to work together. But you got to imagine that there may be ways in which the Republicans and the Democrats, for that matter, would like to see their allies maneuver things to their best benefit in November.
Okay, let's go to a few calls here for you, John. Jillian, go ahead, please. You're talking to John Delano.
Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I have a question and a statement. I live in the Hill District, and I vote for every election, and I have done so since I've been 21 years old, because I feel it is a God-given right in America, and I cherish that. My problem is I really don't see where either party is representing the black community, and I am offended that no matter who gets into office, we're always an afterthought on everyone's agenda. And I never hear anything mentioned about what's going to be done in the black communities in the long haul. Can anyone answer that?
Well, it's a great question. Let me first look at what happened last night, because I think what was interesting to me as an analyst looking at the results out of the African-American community, we saw overwhelming support for Cyril Wecht.
Right.
Maybe that's not surprising given the history that Mike DeWitta has had, but Cyril Wecht was winning 85% of the vote out of the black wards.
And he made a special acknowledgement of the black community's support of him during his acceptance speech.
He did, and he has been, you know, Cyril Wecht has been allied with African-American leaders from the very beginning of his career, and in fact has been a strong advocate of civil rights long before, you know, it's popular in the political level. So I think you give the man credit. He has been outspoken for the black community. Now, whether or not he can deliver on anything, I mean, that's a question we don't know, and I think it's certainly up to African Americans to judge that. I happen to think that Cyril Wecht is going to have tremendous support from the African American community in November, and you know, maybe that'll yield something in the end.
Do you think a lot of that support also came from his more recent stands in regard to the Johnny Gamage case?
I'm sure that was part of it. Dr. Wecht has been consistent. I think when it comes to African Americans, to minorities in general, he has had a consistent perspective, a consistent view over the last 30 years.
Okay, but picking up on Joanne's question and looking at the papers full of those little pictures of, you know, who won, and again, it looks pretty blindingly white.
Yes, and in fact, I mean, a lot of criticism of the Democratic Party organization, because in fact they sent out a brochure in support of their candidates that all the super voters, that is Democrats who never miss an election, got this brochure, and they had a picture stretched across of 8 white males, all in their business suits and ties, and you know, to me, that wasn't the image of the Democratic Party. There are a lot of women in the Democratic Party, and there's certainly a lot of African Americans who have been big supporters of the Democratic Party. That was the endorsed slate. The actual nominations are the same same white males.
I'll tell you, it's very, as not a white male, and Joanne is not a white, it is very, very, I mean, you get to the point where it's frustrating, it's depressing, and it makes you angry.
Well, and it ought to. You take a look at the county council races, which I was just examining this morning to see who the victors are and who our choices are come up in fall. We have African Americans who are running for the county council in several districts, including Republican African Americans, and we also have some women who are running as well, including one district where the choice is only
two women.
So a woman is guaranteed.
Actually,
right, but really, you're absolutely right, Lynn. That and the caller is right. When you look at this overall, neither party in this election is offering a great many choices outside of the white male.
And look what white males have done for us, huh? How's about a change? Let's elect nothing but black women. How's that? Let's give it a shot. Can't be any worse. We'll keep our conversation going with John Delano, political analyst, when we return.
The official transportation provider of Cullen on Cable is Pittsburgh Limousine, the one clear choice in transportation.
All right, we're trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. What did you guys do yesterday, for heaven's sakes? Well, it always works, doesn't it, John? You got a certain kind of a name people recognize, I guess whether it's known because you're a serial killer or not, it means you get elected.
Well, name recognition is the most important part of politics, and frankly, some of the candidates running for judge know that very well. You had 49 Democrats on the ballot, 39 candidates running the Republican primary, and the people who win are those who have some kind of name recognition, like Frank Lucchino, who won both the Republican and the Democratic nomination yesterday.
And he was like really buried in the middle, so people went looking.
He was very smart. He ran some of the best commercials I've seen where he didn't really talk about his qualifications. He talked instead about, hey, search that ballot, go right down, find me. And everybody did. He led both tickets.
DeFazio and Bonnie DiCarlo. This is an at-large election. I mean, this is a woman, here again, excuse me while I sound off a little bit. They say that women aren't getting into politics here because, well, they haven't paid their dues. Here's a woman who has run, this is her third run for public office that I'm aware of. She is capable, she is qualified, and women can't break through. DeFazio, who the heck is he? A wrestler whose brother's the sheriff. His name is known.
Well, you've just put your fingers on.
Give me a break.
Well, but you've identified the reasons why he would win. He has a name. The DeFazio name is well recognized in Allegheny County. His brother, Sheriff Pete DeFazio, has probably the best campaign organization of any Democratic office holder in this county, bar none. Pete DeFazio inherited Gene Kuhn's political operation and has made it better. And Johnny DeFazio is known because, like the governor of Minnesota, he's a wrestler. It's something new and different. Bonnie DiCarlo, I grant you, has been involved in party politics, has been running. She always runs against the party organization people, so she is not viewed with great favor by the party people. But it takes a long time to get your name out there. I suspect if she were to run again in a race with someone who doesn't have the name of DeFazio or some well-known political name, she might have a shot at it.
Here's a better idea. Why doesn't she just go and change her name to something like Flaherty, okay? Then she can win too.
Well, we had a Flaherty on the ballot for judge, and he didn't come anywhere close. Yeah.
We had a Bob Colville who is just missed, right?
Yeah.
But how many people do you think thought they were voting for Bob Colville, who they know, as opposed to the Bob Colville who was on the ballot?
Well, I'm sure people did. In fact, I know people who went in voting for this Bob Colville thinking he was the DA.
Sure.
And this is actually Rob Colville, who is the son of the DA. He's been out of law school for about 3 or 4 years. And
let's make him a judge. What the heck? He's been out for 3 or 4 years.
He lost, as of this moment, he was 180 votes behind for the last position, the 6th position, but that is so close that he could actually end up as the Democratic nominee when the official count is taken.
I'm beginning to rethink the whole idea of democracy. I mean, mean, it doesn't work if people aren't educated about who they're voting for. They might as well give everybody some darts and tell them to just throw at some board.
Well, you know, this is... But this is ever it has been thus. You know, you can't argue that it's been bad this time versus other times.
No, it's always bad. Jody, is that Jody?
Hi.
Hi. Go ahead.
How you doing?
I'm frustrated. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. So am I, and that's why I've called you, because I figured you're the woman to talk to.
Well, talk.
Well, anyway, I'm calling about the Sapala and Conrad.
Okay.
Sure.
And a little disappointed at the people of Allegheny County. First of all, being a victim, I know how important it is for the district attorney's office. And I can't understand how Sapala won, first of all, with even got in the office, first of all, with never trying criminal cases, knowing nothing about criminal law. How can he be there to defend us, to stick up for us, the people of Allegheny County, the victims?
Okay. Well, we hear where you're coming from.
I think, you know, a couple different questions in all of that. Let me just say, first of all, that we don't know for sure whether Chris Conrad is going to be in this race in the fall, because both Conrad and Zapala had very strong efforts to write in on the Republican side. The Republicans had no candidates for DA. So whoever of the two gets the most votes written in on the ballot, over 500, becomes the Republican nominee.
So it's conceivable there'll be a rematch in the general election if Conrad, in fact, has more write-in votes.
Or it's also conceivable that Steve Zapala will win the Republican write-in, and then there's no election at all. He wins automatically.
He'll be running against himself.
You got it.
Slightly
so I think, frankly, Chris Conrad did not run a strong campaign in this election. He did not have the resources to run a strong campaign. He might have had, as this caller believes, he might have had some issues, but they were never displayed to the public. He didn't start to run television commercials on the main stations until the weekend before the election, and you cannot do that when you're trying to get votes.
Okay, we can't run through all these county council races, but looking at what you see, any chance of having a Republican-controlled?
Yes. I think there is a chance. I think it's not an overwhelming chance. As I look through this, we have basically 5 seats that are guaranteed, practically guaranteed for the Democrats from the city of Pittsburgh and the Mon Valley. We have 2 seats that are likely to go Republican. We have the 2 at-large seat, 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. That leaves 6 seats, which are major battlegrounds for both parties. If the Republicans capture 5 of those 6 seats, they will have a majority on county council. That's a tough order, but you know, they drew the map. The Republicans drew the map, and that means they believe that they have a shot with their nominees in each of the, and these are all suburban districts around the city of Pittsburgh.
So there is a possibility, a Republican executive and a Republican council, a possibility.
A
this
possibility,
is a very hotly contested general election.
It really will be, and I think that means we're going to see more money into this race in the millions, both in terms of the chief executive race, but also with these county council races. The public really is just beginning to wake up to what county council is all about. These are the folks who are going to raise your taxes or keep them from being raised, because the chief executive can't do that on his own.
Oh, stop pandering to the public. It's the only way you figure they'll get interested. They might raise your taxes, so go out there and say, you know, no, absolutely no. John Delano says we're not going to call him now until the general election. I'm going to prove you wrong and give you a call next month.
Good, I'll come.
I don't know what we'll talk about, but we'll think of something.
Great, thank you. Maybe barbecues.
Yeah, maybe barbecues. Well, thank you very much. That's what we're going to be talking about when we come back. The guy wrote the Bible, the Barbecue Bible. So, we'll be talking to him. Stay with us. Why, hello. My chair just attempted to dump me right on the floor. I'm hanging on by my fingernails, and I'm sure he'll come to my aid. He looks like a chivalrous sort. Stephen Reichlin, who has written the Bible. That's a
tall order.
That is a tall order, but actually we should amend that. The Barbecue Bible. Here you are. Where are you? Right here? There it is. It's almost as thick as the Bible.
It's biblical in its head.
That's fantastic. Well, you know what used to be? What do we need this for? Because all barbecuing was about is slapping some burgers or a steak or two on the grill. I mean, we don't need you for that, and we don't need 7,000 pages for it, Stephen.
Well, actually, that's a very narrow view of barbecuing and grilling. And I had this wacky idea 4 years ago to see how people grill and barbecue around the world. So I set off to travel the world's barbecue trail. I visited 25 countries on 5 continents. And between those covers are great grilling ideas from Indonesia to Argentina, from Turkey to Morocco. Everywhere in the world people grill. I've been there and I write about it.
Well, aren't you a smart one? So you thought, now how can I travel the world and have somebody pay for it?
Well,
is that how it works? So you got a publisher to...
Yes, but I have to be honest with you. This is a passion for me. I love grilling. I used to live in Boston, and in February I'd be chipping the ice off my kettle grill. And I moved to Miami 9 years ago, so that really kind of got me grilling, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, barbecue. It's not just for breakfast anymore.
Why is it that grilled foods taste better?
Well, I think, first of all, by the chemistry and the physics of the heat, grilling is it's a dry cooking method, and it imparts flavor. It brings out flavor. It caramelizes the meat proteins and meats and the sugars and vegetables. So things just taste better grilled by the very way that they're cooked. I mean, it's fun to do. It's interactive. It satisfies that primal need a lot of guys have to set things on fire.
What is the thing about guys? Yeah, because I love to grill. Does that mean I have too much testosterone or something? Why is it that men won't cook in a kitchen, usually, but they want to tend the fire outside?
Well, I think that this harks back to a very ancient memory when we became the first animals on the planet who cooked, and the way we did it was over a barbecue grill. But, there are 3 countries that I discovered where there are a lot of women grill jockeys. Okay, and guess what they are? Can you guess?
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
Mexico, Vietnam, and Thailand. You find a lot of ladies manning the grills there. And even as I've been traveling around this country, there's a huge sisterhood of barbecuers and grillers out there.
Absolutely true. Now, I think second only to whether or not the toilet paper is supposed to go over or under is the question of charcoal and gas.
Versus gas.
Yeah, boy.
It's
very emotional.
It's really a matter of temperament. If you're the kind of person that likes the sport of grilling, that is building the fire, tending the fire, moving the food from hot spots to cold spots, charcoal's the way to go. If you like push-button convenience, gas is the way to go. In my field, we barbecue writers like to dump on gas, or traditionally we did, but when I was in Tokyo, I went to a restaurant called Inakaya, an absolutely fabulous, hideously expensive, tremendously dramatic barbecue and grilling and restaurant. They use gas grills. And afterwards I said, you know what, if it's good enough for Inakaya, it's good enough for Stephen Reichland.
So it's sort of like, what, a reverse snobbery has set in that, you got to do it on a kettle as opposed to the gas, or is there a sense that you don't get the flavor?
Well, there's a common misconception, and that is charcoal does not actually impart a flavor. It's a clean, dry heat, so the flavor that you're getting is actually what that heat does to the food. But charcoal is wood that has had all of the flavor-producing elements cooked out of it. I mean, that's how you make charcoal. Now, where you get the flavor is if you introduce either wood chips or wood chunks. And one of my favorite things to do is to buy a bag of wood chunks at a hardware store, light the wood chunks in the chimney starter the same way you would light charcoal, and then grill over wood embers, because there you will get a pronounced smoke flavor, and that's absolutely the best.
He wrote the Bible, the Barbecue Bible, Stephen Reichland, and you know what? We're heading outside to the grill where we will join you in just a moment. Come on with us. And wouldn't you know, it just started drizzling. Now, if it rains, this is something I've often wondered. If it rains, you can still grill out,
sure
right?
Can.
Right?
That's what umbrellas are for. And neither hail nor snow nor rain nor sleet shall deter us in our mission to make great barbecue.
That's right. Now, I'm looking and I see some. Oh man, is that beautiful?
Okay, I wanted to show you. This is very much beyond beef and burgers today. So, first thing, grilled corn. If you ask me, there is no better way in the world to cook corn than on the grill.
But I've never seen anybody just stick it on like that.
Well, let me show you how you do this now. This is a really neat trick. So you take a whole ear of corn. I know you guys have great corn here in Pennsylvania.
Great corn, right.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull the husk off. and it's kind of like peeling a banana. And you want to leave it attached at the bottom, just like you see here. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this down, and I've got a little piece of string here. And if you'll hold the microphone, okay. I'm just going to tie this at the bottom here. Let's put that down there.
This is already looking too labor intensive.
No, this is easy. And, you know, I've read a lot of nonsense about whether you soak the corn, you take the husk off, you put it back.
That's right.
What you do, you really want to taste the fire. And to taste the fire, you've got to have the corn right on the fire. So, I've got here extra virgin olive oil I'm using today, but this could well be melted butter. And we just brush the corn as it roasts. Take a look at that. And you can hear it almost starts to crackle. A little salt, a little pepper. It almost starts to crackle like popcorn. You hear it kind of crackle?
Yeah, I mean, just...
You're going to bite into this later. I know it's going to mess your lipstick, but I promise you this is going to be the best corn you ever tasted.
Okay, I'm still confused about why you had to tie those things back with string.
So, when I go to eat it, I have a handle, okay? I don't need a little corn cob holder.
Okay.
You see? Okay, so
Cool.
Just ready to go.
Okay, how do you know it's done? When it's black, it's going to get black,
when you
Stephen.
see, no. When you see this little brown, you see it brown like this, we're done. Okay?
You call that brown, I call that black.
It's a little, it's a dark brown, but it's brown, not black. We are aiming for grilling, not burning here today.
All right, generally speaking, it would be how many minutes? Whoa.
Oh, this would be, the corn is about maybe 8 to 12 minutes in all. Depends on your heat. Every grill, even of the best gas grills, every grill has hot spots and cold spots. So you'll see I'm in constant motion. That's what I love about grilling, because it's very interactive. You know, you go to bake something in the oven, I mean, there's nothing to do but grilling. Look, I've got a hot spot here, so I'll move this, go forward, go backwards. The next thing I want to show you, this is sort of interesting, because it's another thing that people don't think of doing on the grill. This grilled corn, by the way, is a recipe from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. Okay, so we're going to go around the world.
All right,
in the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, now, grilled tomatoes, these are just plum tomatoes, and I've grilled them. Look, you see that when the skins start to blister, again, little salt and pepper, and my little kicker here is I've got chopped fresh dill. Okay, smell that. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay,
It is.
so this goes on, little chopped garlic, chopped fresh dill on our tomatoes. Grilled dilled tomatoes from the Republic of Georgia in Central Asia. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, take a look over here. A bunch of scallions.
Yep.
Now, if this were any easier, I mean, they'd have to punish me for this. You'd simply throw the scallions on the grill. You want to cook them till they are nicely brown. Nothing goes better with steak than grilled scallions. And this is what how Mexicans serve grilled steaks. Okay?
Okay.
And the last dish, this will be our main course. I have a couple of these made ahead, and I'm going to throw them on the grill to get it so you can taste, and then we'll come back. Honey sesame shrimp on the Barbie, a recipe from down under in Australia. And we'll just throw those on the grill here like that.
Now, you've got some 500 recipes in your book, right?
I do, yes, from all over the world, plus a crash course on great barbecuing and grilling. So, I mean, if you've never even bought a grill, I'll tell you how to buy a grill, how to set it up, which fuel to use, you name it, I give it to you. How much time do we have?
We've got 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes, he
Okay,
said.
we got plenty of time. Great. So I'd like to just jump back to this shrimp then, if we can, because this is really, really tasty. The marinade now, it's a soy and sesame marinade, and it's actually, it comes from Australia, but you can see the Asian roots are obvious.
Absolutely.
And in Australia, you know, there's a tremendous Asian population in Australia, and the Asians started coming in the 60s. Australians love to grill. I mean, they are almost as nuts about it as we are. So, sesame oil, soy sauce, a little honey. We have some sesame seeds here, and then a whole clove of fresh garlic and some fresh ginger. I love the smell of fresh ginger. Now let me show you kind of another interesting technique here. Have you ever tried to put something on a skewer and then you go to turn it and everybody sort of wobbles like that, right?
That's
okay,
right.
so come on in real close here and watch what I'm going to do. I've got a second skewer and I'm going to stick the second skewer right through the shrimp in another row. Okay, just like that. So I've double skewered this, so now when I go to turn it, the shrimp stay in place. Okay, just little trick, but
Smart little tip there, folks. You double skewer those little shrimps.
Make your life easier. Okay, now we'll turn these guys, And let's say we can put this one back here. And handy tongs. You always never want to be without your tongs. So,
now you say never stab the meat. You don't use a fork.
That's right. This comes from the 10 Commandments of Great Barbecuing and Grilling. It's commandment number 7, turn, do not stab. This is particularly for all you folks out there that want to make steak, all you guys out there, you know, macho, take the barbecue fork, stick holes in the steak, and what happens is all the juices drain down on the holes. So use the tongs to turn your steak and keep the juices inside.
Okay. Right. The rain is picking up here.
Okay, we're doing great. And you know what? You look like you could use something here. So I'm gonna give you a honey sesame.
All right.
On the Barbie here.
All I need is another hand.
These guys moving.
All right.
As I mentioned, but I just put up a website for the Barbecue Bible. It's www.barbecuebible.com. And so if anybody has any questions, they can ask me questions online.
Okay. Yeah. And you're also going to be at Borders at South Hills. 5:30 to 7.
Yeah, doing book signing, answering grilling questions, and it's you know, now these are starting to get a little dark here, so we'll just pull these to the back. But now this is just, I mean,
perfect. It's perfect.
It's if you've never had corn like this, you haven't eaten corn.
Okay, that one's got my name on it, and I'm about to eat some corn, I think. Okay? Now, are we going to go back inside and get out of the rain and keep on talking? And if you have some questions for the guy who wrote the Bible on barbecuing, Stephen Reichlin, come on in now, 333 PCNC. The aromas, I'm smelling it now, of all these wonderful,
You're getting
wonderful
the whole world of
Look how beautiful this is. Can you possibly see it? Look at the colors. My gosh. And easy as can be. There wasn't anything that wasn't easy. You just sort of dropped everything
it's all
right
real
up.
fast. But if you think about grilling, primarily it's done outdoors. It's a very simple cooking method. It's also really healthy. You know, this is the only method that makes food more flavorful without fat. If you think about it, I mean, grilling adds flavor without fat.
What about that stuff I heard about? You know, I was trying to scare you. The carcinogens, charcoal. What was that about?
It's just a few alarmists that always raise their ugly heads around this time of year. No, but I'll tell you, I did some research on it. There is a small risk of increasing the likelihood of cancer-producing chemicals when you grill. But just to put it in perspective, eating 100 grilled steaks will raise your chances of getting cancer and dying by the same amount that bicycling 20 minutes will, by getting an X-ray in a hospital, by rock climbing for 3 minutes, by being 60 years old for 15 minutes. So in other words, the chances are really pretty minimal.
So enjoy. Now, you had mentioned the 10
Commandments.
Yeah. And some of them are?
Now, we talked about turn, don't stab. Very important one is give it a rest, okay? You pull a steak or a chicken breast off the grill, your immediate impulse is to cut into it right away, right? If you let it sit for 2 minutes on a plate before you serve it, what will happen is all the juices that have been driven to the center of the meat by the intense heat will have a chance to spread back out to the outside of the steak, so your steak will be much juicier.
Here's the thing, though. For those of us who never know if something's done, there's a tendency to want to get in there because you want to see if...
I'm going to teach you a very simple... We're talking about steaks here?
We're talking about anything.
Okay, anything. Steaks or lamb chops. Okay. Loose fist like this, press right here. If you make a loose fist and it's real soft, that's a rare steak. Make a somewhat tighter fist like that, that's a medium steak. To make a very tight fist and feel it, that's a well-done steak. Now, what I'm talking about is with your finger, you're going to touch the top of the steak, and that's what it's going to feel like.
Okay, so if you want it rare, it's going to give a little bit.
It's going to be very yielding, yielding. Medium is going to be somewhat yielding, but not a lot. And well-done steak will be hard. Of course, you don't want to cook a steak well done.
No, you don't, although I do know some people who eat them that way. So, used to be this was just for meat eaters, grilling.
Right.
Obviously. We have 3 of the 4 things here, 3 of them
That's right.
are vegetables.
Well, you know, I'm married to a vegetarian. My daughter's a vegetarian. And in traveling the world's barbecue trail, other countries are not quite so carnocentric. Like, you get to Japan, and they really have a dazzling variety of vegetables that are served on the grill. Or you go to India, you think about India, they have 400 million people who are vegetarians. So they have evolved some pretty sophisticated barbecue that is meatless.
So grilling is not just for carnivores anymore, it is definitely for vegetarians, and you've got marvelous vegetarian recipes.
Sure.
In here.
I have over 90 fish recipes in this book. I mean, so there really is something here for everybody.
Okay. What about the accoutrements you need for instance, doing fish on a grill? Do you need one of those, you know, those baskets you see, something that'll keep it from falling apart?
Well, to be honest with you, that helps. They're talking about the hinged fish basket, and you put the fish in the center. But if you don't have one, what you need to do is you need to clean the grill with a stiff wire brush before you put the fish on, and you need to oil the grate. And to do that, I fold a paper towel up into a little pad, dip it in oil, and with my tongs, I run the oiled paper across the bars of the grate. Now, if you oil the grate properly before the fish goes on, it won't stick. And this is really, I've done this a million times, and it really does work. So keep it clean, keep it lubricated. 2 very important tips for grilling.
Okay, keep it clean. In other words, you don't like those grills that look like you're looking at meat that was the remnants of meat from 3 summers past.
Nah. Put it this way, the firebox, I don't mind some spatterings of fat and meat and smoke in the firebox, but the grate should be clean.
The grates should be clean. And all you need for that is what? The wire brush?
A stiff wire brush, yeah. And you brush it once when the grate is preheated, but before the food goes on, and once afterward when the food comes off, you're finished. And that's all the care you need to do for a grill.
I was grilling some chicken just the other day with some friends, and I said, do you think I'm supposed to put the top back on this, or is it supposed to be out sort of like open? And nobody knew, but I thought the top should be on. When do you put the cover
Very good
on,
question.
and when do you pick it up?
Well, whenever you're indirect grilling, you cover the grill. Now, indirect grilling is, let's say, if you had a 2-burner gas grill, right? You would light this burner, you'd leave this burner off, and you'd put your whole chicken up here, and then you'd cover the grill. And what indirect grilling does is it turns your barbecue grill into a sort of barbecue pit or outdoor oven. Okay, now you were probably cooking a chicken breast, I bet. Okay, so chicken breast. In general, if you're working with a thick steak or bone-in chicken breast or chicken quarters, you would cover the grill because it'll speed the cooking process up. Something real thin, a slice of bread, because bread is great cooked on the grill. Very thin chicken breast, you don't need to cover the grill.
Okay.
It just speeds the process up.
Now, a lot of people are starting to get these grills in their own kitchens.
Yeah.
Does all the grilling tips you have for outdoor grilling work inside for the indoor?
Absolutely. Grills? And not only the tips, but you know, if there's such a thing as a barbecue Bible method, which I believe there is, it really involves using rubs and marinades and spice pastes to create an ethnic identity for any food. So you could take a chicken breast, which really in a way is like a blank canvas, and you can flavor it Thai using fish sauce and lime juice. You could flavor it Brazilian using coconut milk and bell peppers. The idea is use these marinades, and then once you've given the ethnic flavor, you can grill outside, you can grill inside. You know, a lot of people live in condos and apartments. They have to use electric grills. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Stephen Reichlin will tell you what's okay and what's not. He has, in fact. It's all in this book, The Barbecue Bible. He'll be signing the book at Borders South Hills, 5:30 to 7 today. Right. And he's also going to be popping up on my radio show later this afternoon, 1360 a.m. So stay tuned there, and if you didn't get a chance to get some questions in, you can do it on the radio. Meanwhile, Steve, thanks.
My pleasure.
I got some eating to do.
You got to try one of those shrimp, yeah.
I'm going to eat before the crew of vultures gets in here. I'll be back in just a minute. Oh man, that shrimp, that corn, it is so good. Hey, here's Peggy Finnegan.
Tonight after 5:30 on Channel 11 News, you're always hearing about efforts to clean up the environment, but one local county is one of the most polluted in the country. Find out if you're living in it tonight after 5:30 on Channel 11 News.
Well, you're catching me left and right today. Thanks, Peggy, by the way. Appreciate it very much. I truly do. Coming up tomorrow on this very program, Pittsburgh-born author Iris Raynor Dart. She wrote Beaches, you know, the one we sobbed through with Bette Midler and what's her name? What's her name? I have no idea. Anyway, she's got a new book out called When I Fall in Love. I won't do it. I promise. Don't sing to them. Don't sing to them. They don't like it. Hey, join me on the radio, noon to 3, 1360 a.m. Stephen Reichlin's going to be there again. And so will John Delano talking about the election. Talk to you later.